I'm actually a teacher administrator at the Botton Village Steiner School, so I'm quite used to showing people around the classrooms, and so I've got quite a lot to say really, but I'm used to operating in a question and answer session, and I'm used to having lots of props around me that I can show people in the classroom. So if there are no questions, this, as I say to James, this could well turn out to be a 2-minute talk rather than a 10-minute talk. About 25, 30 years ago, I knew nothing at all about Steiner Waldorf education. I was living in Brighton with 2 small children, and I used to take a walk through the park some mornings, and there I used to see coming out into the park a little procession of lively-looking children who, you know, with no uniforms, with their teacher. They formed a nice circle, and then they did lots of singing, rhythmic work, ball games, skipping, that kind of thing. And my children were in a conventional school at the time, and I think it saw itself, even my oldest boy was only 7, but I think the school saw itself as an academic school. So he was, you know, working pretty hard. And when I saw these children in the park, I thought, yes, that's the thing for me. So I went to a talk given by one of the teachers at the school, and I always remember I was really impressed by one thing that one little aspect of that talk, where she said that the gesture of the children in too many schools was something like this, whereas the gesture in a Steiner Waldorf school should be something more like that. And that seemed to make so much sense to me for young children. So I started sending my children to the school, and yeah, that was quite impressive. My youngest child was in the kindergarten, and he had a wonderful time there, inhabiting a sort of magic land of stories and playing with natural materials, you know, where everything was positive, you know, the direction of the teacher was positive, no reading and writing, just stories, games, play. And at the end of the morning, when the kindergarten teacher drifted by, you know, trailing various robes and things, and I just could not believe that as she started to sing, tidy up time, all these children, you know, magically fell in and did it. It was quite astonishing to me, in such order and peace. You know, my older child was in a class older than that, and I was really impressed by the extent to which he was engaged in what he was doing. Lots of art and music, that kind of thing. Lots of stories. And so I was very pleased. But I still didn't know anything very much about Steiner Waldorf education. And I can remember that at the end of the first term at Christmas, I met it with a friend of mine. So this is going to be longer than 2 minutes, isn't it? I met it with a friend of mine who's been in exactly the same position, sending his child to the school for the first time, not knowing anything about it. I remember sitting in the pub with him, and he said, Michael, I've been reading about Steiner. I've been reading some books and lectures by Steiner. I thought, oh yeah, interesting. And he said, absolute nutcase. So that was our original impression of the school, and in a way of this sort of figure behind it. And obviously our views must have changed and mellowed a little bit, because he went off to be a Steiner teacher in New Zealand, and you know, I've ended up doing some years in Waldorf education as well. I have to think really, what do you get if you send a child to a Waldorf school, as distinct from any other kind of school? And that's quite hard for me to say. But I think what you don't get is the the national curriculum, the standardised central control, and all the testing. We don't have any of that at all. We have our own distinctive curriculum. It's quite structured. It's not a free school in that sense. But I always think that, many schools have very good teachers, but as things are nowadays, I feel that they're all trying to educate the whole child in theory, not just the intellect, but the emotions, physical body, and so on. But I always think that the way things are now, actually, very able teachers are often being rather hampered and held back by the curriculum that's imposed upon them. Whereas I think we're lucky in that we've got a curriculum that actually does allow us to educate the whole child, to appeal to a child's physical development, to look at them emotionally and spiritually, as well as just intellectually. And what we try to do is we try to structure the school based on some ideas Steiner had about child development. And I can't go into that in great detail, but I think really, in a sense, if I can put it simply, for the first 7 years, Steiner sees the child as becoming comfortable in his or her physical body and not ready for academic learning. And so that's why the kindergarten in Steiner schools is as it is, where it's play, stories, natural materials, allowing children to have a childhood, which is so often kind of squeezed out of them now, I think. And then from 7 to 14, it's a bit harder to say, but I think what children are basically doing there is developing more of a sort of feeling life and a sense of rhythm. And it's only from about 14 onwards that the intellect, really kicks in and really needs to be addressed. So from 7 to 14, we're trying to address that feeling realm, so that we've got lots of art and lots of music. We try to present everything as artistically as possible, even the science. So that's what we're trying to do there. We have no IT up to age 14 at all, because I'll probably get a bit lost here in detail. Got no IT at all, because we feel really at those ages, until about 14, children really need to be relating to people and to real things, and not so much in an abstract, restricted mode. Our crafts that we do, it's not the design process either, which I think a lot of schools are hung up on. Our crafts involve really getting to grips with the materials, attacking bits of wood with chisels and hammers, and felting, really getting physically into the crafts. We have 2 foreign languages from age 7, French and German, and that's done very orally and actively to start with. The written stuff only comes later. One of the features of our school is every morning begins with a 2-hour main lesson. And the main lessons have a theme that lasts for about 3 or 4 weeks. So that some things like history and geography and science that normally come as part of the weekly timetable don't. They just come in one of these main lesson blocks of 3 or 4 weeks, 2 hours a morning. And it's a bit like, children have crazes for games, don't they? Where they get very intensely into something and they don't want to know for a while. And we try and bring that sort of feeling into our education, so that they can get very intensely into history or science and then let it go for a while. And 2 hours every morning might sound like hard work or dullness, but the way we do it, it isn't, because it's not just about acquiring facts. Every main lesson will start off with a morning verse. The children will do some recorder playing, singing, mental arithmetic, movement, all sort of getting going and warming up, really. And typically the teacher would then give perhaps 20 minutes worth of new material, and get the children for about quarter of an hour or 10 minutes, quarter of an hour to do things that recalled what had happened the day before. And then the children would probably spend about half an hour doing some work, painting, drawing, writing in their very beautiful main lesson books that we get them to compile, so that there's a kind of rolling rhythm from one day to the next of the main lessons. Other features of the school. Mine's a blank now. Anyway, so that's a sort of basic approach. There are probably about, I would say, about 1,000 Steiner schools in 60 countries in the world, about 30 in this country. We only go up to age 14, but a few of them in Britain do go up to 18, 19, that kind of age. I think we're really trying to provide an education that's really rounded and allows children to cope in their later life. We don't want to be imposing, we don't want to be, as I see it, training children for jobs that might be very different in the future when they grow up. We're trying to get them to develop themselves as individuals as much as possible. And I think our curriculum really helps us to do that. Yeah, I'll probably stop there, I suppose. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If you want to find out more about the Botton Village School, we are tomorrow having an Advent sale there, an Advent fair, where from 11 till 4 there'll be lots of activities for children, lots of things to buy and sell, a little bit like here perhaps, and it's only 40 minutes drive away. Okay.